Welcome to Season 1 series of the Make Boards podcast. Today's guest is Henri Kuehnert, an entrepreneur, turned investor, turned coach, and seasoned board professional. A warm welcome, Henri.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. I'm really excited being on the show.
So am I. Henri, one of the very remarkable things that you have shared with me, actually quite a while ago, and which evidently stuck with me, is the following quote. There are really two ways to have a voice on the board. As board chairperson, or as the one board member closest to the founder. Please explain, elaborate a little bit on this very profound quote.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mark. I think that's true. Why is it true? Because the CEO is the gateway to the company, and the CEO is the most important person in the room. And losing this person or losing connection to this person means most likely failure for the company. So, and therefore, for me, there are two ways for not losing the access or the relationship to the founder or CEO. The first one is being close with him or her and building a trusted relationship over time, which, by the way, is not easy. So I tried with every CEO I'm in a board with. But to be honest, I didn't always succeed. Yeah, it's not easy because it's still a power imbalance. We can talk about this a little bit later, maybe. And the second one is, if you're the chairman of the board, you're the moderator in the room. Yeah? So I remember one story once. It's many years ago when one of the investors in a company really hit hard on the founding team. Mm-hmm. Even unfair, with words that I don't want to repeat here. And I saw it as my role to step in and say, hey, let's stop for a second. Let's see if this is really an objective conversation or if it's just about bashing the founding team. So as the moderator in the room, as the chairman, I also see it as my obligation to make sure that the power balance is kept. Yeah? And of course, this also builds trust with the founding team and the CEO. So, yes, thanks for quoting me, and I can only say that's the right way to go.
Fantastic. Just already a few things that I like to follow up on what I heard. One thing you emphasized: the CEO is the most important person. That is not always easy to stomach for board members because typically. Board members typically are in the boardroom because they have achieved something, they have a track record, they're visible, they have had success most likely. So with that comes confidence, and with that comes also some ego. So to step back and leave the stage for the CEO is not that easy. What's your experience? What's your observations on that?
Absolutely. So 100% right. What you just said. It's also my experience. So when you enter a boardroom, there's only alpha males and females, so all the time. So everybody in the boardroom thinks they're special. They have achieved something because they are in this room. Yeah? And the first thing that you have to know when you enter a boardroom, be aware of it. Mm-hmm. Don't expect that you are the only alpha male in our case, Mark. So then there comes an ego with this, as you said, and leaving the ego at the door is not easy. Of course, everybody claims that ego doesn't matter and this position is not so important for me. And if I have to step back, I would do it immediately and so on. 90% it's not true. It's not true. It's just a straight lie. And not a lie to the other board members, but even worse, a lie to themselves.
Yeah. How do you mitigate that? How in the boards that you serve, and also in your own company when you had board members as a CEO, as a founder CEO, kind of how do you try to balance that? How to try to keep these egos in check besides the awareness?
Yeah. So I remember a specific board with some very successful entrepreneurs, seniors in terms of age, but also in terms of experience, and in terms of financial success. So what I did in this company is, first of all, I was aware that we have egos in the room. Yeah, I don't deny egos; they are just there. So
Yes.
second thing is, I try to make sure that everybody gets heard. So the board members all have their specific skill set, specific journey, how they came here. Yeah? So when I moderate the session, I try to step back a little bit, try first to bring my ego under control. Yeah? And sometimes I succeed, sometimes not.
Yes. Yes.
And I try to how should I say this? Make sure that every board member is able to express their ego in a certain way. Yeah. So I don't know. I give a question to this person. Say, hey, from your experience, person A, what do you think we should do in terms of sales? Then person A gets heard. Then person B, hey, from your experience in terms of international expansion, how did you approach it when you built your company? And by doing so, first of all, I balance the communication in the room.
Yes.
Yeah, so everybody says something, and then second, the ego calms down because you satisfy the ego already to a certain extent. Yeah, and then it becomes a really good discussion.
Yes.
Yeah? So therefore, it's also important that the board members have something to say and have a relevant experience.
Yeah.
Maybe we come to this a little bit later.
Yes. So I just want to mirror that. What I heard for one is that you very intentionally facilitate the discussion. You give everybody a bit of a stage to show their expertise, to contribute to the room, but also making sure that it's balanced, that not person A has a lot of airtime and possibly person C stays quite quiet or silent altogether. And you kind of pander a little bit to the ego, so they have had their moment of glory, and you can contribute their expertise, which then kind of makes for a more constructive atmosphere. I love that. I love that. And I think it's quite underrated that being intentional about facilitation, kind of which formats to use, who to talk, how much open discussions versus some guided rules is quite underrated.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it would be ideal if you have some, let's say, some code of conduct, how to behave in a boardroom. We didn't have this. In not a single board I was in or I am in, we have a formal code of conduct. Yeah. It would be helpful sometimes, but we didn't decide for it because most people I work with in boardrooms are not professional board members.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
They're once in a while in a board. Typically, they're there because they're the investors. Sometimes they're external board members who also don't serve in many boards. Maybe it's the only one. So it's not a profession. So to say. So
yes.
I'm really happy to talk to you, Mark, about this because you professionalize this topic now more. That's good.
Yes, and yeah, totally. And I just think, we have so many entrepreneur friends and family business owners, and we know VCs, and sometimes they're on both sides of the table, and so many underutilize the boardroom, right? And acknowledge that their boards don't live up to the potential. And I think there's vast room there. Another notion that you mentioned I'm really keen to explore a bit further is this power imbalance, right? And it can be either way. Sometimes it can be the founder having a lot of cards in their hands, and sometimes it can be more the investor side, or in a family business side, maybe that arm of the family or the professional CEO that they brought in. How to navigate these power imbalances in the boardroom.
Yeah. So there is a power imbalance for sure from time to time. Depends where the company stands. Yeah. So if we talk about the startup sector in the early days, typically the, let's say, investors have a stronger position. Product market fit is not there yet. Numbers are not great yet. So again, if I'm moderating this, if I'm the chairman, I try to be aware that we have this power balance, acknowledging it first.
Yeah.
Yeah? And again, try to make sure that it's not going into some bashing mode where one party bashes the other one. Yeah? So again, that has to do with ego or with uncertainty sometimes, or with fear. Or if we don't push hard, the company might fail. And typically, the failure comes even faster if you push too hard in the wrong direction. Yeah? So, and it's not easy to stay calm in these phases.
Yes.
Yeah? So I remember one company which didn't make it, unfortunately. So they didn't survive. But I remember the last board meetings before the company went bankrupt were insane.
Okay.
Everybody only tried to push for their own interests.
Yeah.
So even though it might have been possible to save this company, every ego just went wild. So,
Wow.
And that's the it was insane. And normal conversations were impossible in this scenario I'm thinking about right now. You have to manage somehow to stay objective and rational.
Yeah. Let's get back to the part. I just want to quickly put it to the extent you can talk about it and willing to talk about it, obviously. But what I heard is truly that basically the company was on a downhill slope. The board meetings really turned into kind of self-interest advocation and a way for everybody looking for their own position. And that contributed or even prevented the board from possibly turning the ship around.
Exactly. So I don't know if this ship could have turned around.
Yes,
of course, we all don't know that. What I know is from experience that the ship sank.
Yes.
And nobody got anything.
Yeah.
So it feels like a prisoner's dilemma in game theory. So everybody is only optimizing for themselves, and at the end all fail. And the solution in the classical prisoner's dilemma is building trust.
Yes.
Building relationships. Speaking to each other. If the two prisoners in this scenario talk to each other, everything is fine. And if they trust each other, hopefully. And this is the situation in this boardroom.
If you translate that kind of into a future scenario where you face, possibly a similar scenario where companies in distress, where it's a difficult scenario, and you sense that there is a risk of the board becoming dysfunctional, going to the self-interest advocacy instead of trying to focusing on the crisis and finding solutions and not looking for their own interests. And you mentioned this gold nugget trust, right? What are possible ways to build trust, to create trust, avoid the sinking, and kind of get out of this prisoner dilemma and join forces and turn it around?
Yeah. That's a really important question. So, first of all, trust is built over time.
Yes.
But I give some practical things. Yeah? So, for example, if the board and the management survive the crisis, that builds massive trust. Yeah? I remember one of my first companies many years ago. We had a significant crisis, but we survived the crisis. And the relationship between board and management got even stronger afterwards. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So second one, having joint successes. Yeah. So an expansion that went well, a revenue growth that went well, an acquisition that went well. So these things also build trust because say, hey, we all together made it happen, and it builds trust. And then something very practical. In every board I'm trying to make sure that we have an informal part as part of the board meeting. So we're not only sitting in this room and talking about strategy and business and numbers and so on. We're also leaving the room and we go to a nice restaurant, have dinner, and also maybe some drinks. That builds trust because you tell stories about the rest of your life, about your other businesses. And suddenly you get to know the other person better, and you realize they are not bad people. Yeah? They just have a different background, different stories to tell. Okay? So
Love that. I follow exactly the same recipe if you want. I'm a firm believer that, to build trust in the boardroom, you need to spend time together also outside of the boardroom. Because in the boardroom, possibly you can build competency-based trust. You get to know each other from a professional perspective, but not really from the personal side. But trust has both facets, like the competency side, but also the personal side. Another element that I observed a lot is, you mentioned this crisis scenario, right? And then in the crisis scenario, it's most likely, most often too late to build trust because the proverbial has already hit the fan, right? So I think one thing I learned in all my thinking and writing is that it pays off to build trust in good times, so you can draw on it in bad times, right? It's like a bank account, a trust account. Pay in while you can, so you can withdraw a bit when you need it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. So trust can't be built in minutes. It has to be built in days, weeks, and months, of course. So, especially if you say, hey, something hit the fan. And we need it now, and let's stick together now, stay together now. That's not working because you build the trust before.
Yeah,
so
correct.
Invest early in the relationship with your board and maintain it, because trust takes a long time to build up, and it can be destroyed in a second.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Be really sure not to destroy it in seconds.
Yeah, totally. Have you experienced notions where trust was kind of risked or endangered kind of very vehemently, very abruptly in a board context?
Of course.
Yeah,
I have. So we had situations where some numbers were not always reported correctly to the board. It's difficult. Because then suddenly you think, so there were reasons for that, but suddenly you think, hey, what's happening here? Are we losing our relationship? So therefore it's I call it a duty to give and to bring. So of course it would be great if the management brings all the information, but it's also the duty of the board to request information, to ask for information, and not just to hope that everything is fine. It's like a management style where you say, hey, if I don't hear anything as the CEO, I assume everything is fine. That's not the management style I believe in. I believe that also as a CEO, you have the duty to ask for things, to be proactive. Otherwise, you're just a passive person, and then you're in the wrong spot.
Let's get back on this notion of the information flow. That's also a very worthwhile topic. But before, I want to quickly go back to this power imbalance, to the navigation of a tense situation, and specifically the role of the chairperson. You've been on both sides of the table, entrepreneur, but also investor. Sometimes I see, especially in early stage, more startup, a bit less on scale up and private equity side, a bit of resistance for having an independent chairperson. From the founder side, it's kind of a fear of loss of control, and sometimes very similar from the investor side as well, kind of fear of, okay, why we're the key person, we led the A round, so we should be the key power on besides the founding team or the executive team. What is your view on that? Kind of what is the value of an independent chairperson? How early? What is too early? When is the right person for that function to materialize?
So I have very good experience with independent board members. The company needs to be at a certain level already. So certainly beyond product market fit, at a certain point where they scale already. That should be given. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because an independent chairperson, in my experience, typically comes from the industry. So, and in the industry, you don't learn how to create product market fit. You learn how to run a company, maybe to scale to a certain extent. So that's why the company needs to be at this stage. Otherwise, the independent board person isn't that valuable. So secondly, I experienced that founders were really open to the external board members. Actually, in all cases I can think of, and these are 3 right now, the founders proposed the external board members.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, and it makes sense because they know the industry, they look at certain companies, at certain CEOs and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if they become part of our board?
Yeah.
So, and from the investor side, there was a little bit of reluctance from time to time because it's not about the voting power. Because in my boards, the independent board members don't have let's say, a ruling vote. So they're part of the board, they get heard. Sometimes they lead the board, which is great. So they can talk about the independence of the external board member in a minute. But for the investors, accepting the external board member means that there's also another voice in the room, a voice that gets heard.
Yes.
And this voice of the external board member typically has more knowledge about the topic we're talking about here, about the industry, about the market and so on, than the investor. Because the average investor doesn't know the market that well, because they are broadly, they're not a market expert. That's also valid for me. In every board I'm in, I stress that I'm not an expert in any industry. So I say this at the very beginning, and it makes life easier. And that should be acknowledged. It should be acknowledged that it's clear the external board member is typically a subject matter expert in market, in industry, whereas the investors, of course, they're shareholders, so they're interested in value creation of the company. That's not the same thing.
Yes.
But both contribute to the same thing.
Another area where I think independent chairpersons can add a lot of value more on the generalistic side is to navigate conflicts of interests, which, even with good intentions can materialize. A fund might reach maturity, might seek liquidity. The founders might not want that, or the owners might not. So any experiences there in navigating conflicts of interest on the board?
Yes, one specific situation. It's also many years ago, intense strategic discussion, and it was about how to grow. Is it top line growth or bottom line growth?
Yeah.
What do we do first?
Yes.
Simple question. Difficult answer. And from the investor side, it was clear top line.
Okay. Yes.
Fits to the to the startup ecosystem and startup idea. Whereas the independent board member, as a knowledgeable person about this industry, said, "Hey guys, shouldn't we look at bottom line? Shouldn't we first make sure unit economy works? And do then the top line." And it was a discussion which was not a real discussion, to be honest, because the investor just said, "Hey, we do it this way." The main investor. And that was difficult because it wasn't even possible to exchange ideas on a rational level, because the industry person said, "Hey, we build a sustainable business which will be profitable in the future," whereas the investor said, "Hey, we build a valuable company, and if we create a hockey stick, we create value faster." So this is a real strategic discussion. And the founders in the middle. Typically, the founders we work with, they love their idea, they love their market, they're experts in their markets. They want to build a real company. It's not only about the exits, it's also about the exit, but not only about the exit. But for investors, it's only about the exit. It's about a good return on investment that they promise to their limited partners. And for the independent board member, it's about building the next category leader in this industry, or help building it. So, and using the existing industry as a blueprint, more or less. These are non-aligned, not completely aligned interests.
And that might be exacerbated by the fact that for the entrepreneur, typically it's all eggs in one basket. That's her company, his company. That's all they're doing 24/7. And the VC has a portfolio perspective, right? And you have the VC economics of, hitting one slam dunk, and then that makes up for a lot of not so good ones. That can be a very, very dramatic conflict of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So for So now we're going into like founder psychology. The typical founders have one company. And that's the only thing. So if this thing doesn't work, yes, they can make a second and third attempt. That happens on a regular basis. But you have to start it all over again, look for a team, look for an idea, have another market, find a new investor, and so on. So that's difficult. So this thing is the baby of the founder.
Yes.
So this one thing. And for the investor, it's just a portfolio company. So just 1 out of 30 typically for the average investor. And the investor decides really early if this is amongst the top 2 in the 30 companies or not. So if you're not in the top 2, you have really bad cards in your hand. So because then it's clear you're not the outlier. They will still work with you, of course, but maybe you get only, let's say, second choice board member. I also saw this in companies where the partner decided not to join the board, but send an associate, which was fresh out of business school. That's a sign towards the founder, meaning, hey, yes, we invested in you a few million, but we're not interested in this anymore. So that's a topic. That's a psychology topic.
Can you recover from that? How? And it's appreciate. It's a lot of frank, candid, discussions, and not every investor, I think, is as candid. And from a founder perspective, this is happening. It started well, and then the love is cooling off, and you sense a little bit of a downgrading. Kind of not easy to stomach.
Exactly. So some founders are not aware of it because they say, hey, I have this great investor name in my board. That's enough for me.
Yes.
Even though if the person in the board might not be so experienced. And experience is the one that matters. Smartness doesn't matter. All people in the boardroom, also in our industry, are smart. So IQ is massively overrated. Experience is the one that matters there. So, and for founders saying, hey, I have a great name in the board might sometimes be enough. From my experience, you don't recover from it because it's a downward spiral. The company can still work,
of course.
It's not what the investor is aiming for. But maybe it is what the founders are aiming for. And that's all right, by the way. So there's nothing bad about this. So if the founder says, "Hey, I build a good company with a certain growth and some profits, and that can eventually also be sold," that's great. That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love what you just shared about your IQ being overrated and the truly relevant metric for a good board member really being relevant experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting if you see younger people that have less experience. They are brilliant. They can combine things and they see things and they combine the right things together. And but that's not what it's about. So it's about that the CEO feels that there are people in the room who have done this before, who were at the same point. So it's also not only, but it's also an emotional.
Totally agree. And I think that's where you having been and being an entrepreneur and also investor is a very different thing from somebody, again, as brilliant as they become, who has maybe been in professional services, banker or consultant or whatever, possibly brilliant and super smart. But the emotional toll, the ups and downs of entrepreneurship gives on the person, I think is very difficult to grasp if you have not gone through those sleepless nights, through sweating and when really hell times happen. I think that's hard, and I think that's very important in the boardroom to have at least one board director who has been there.
Exactly. So I still remember the times when I did run my company and I wasn't sure if I could pay the salaries.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
And what sleepless nights meant, or when we have a legal conflict with a customer or something like this in the old days. So these are things that shaped my being actually. So I still know about this. So so when I work with these entrepreneurs, and sometimes I tell some stories, and they say, "Hey, he has been there.
Exactly.
He feels that I have done this before," and that again creates a good trusted relationship with these people.
Fully agree. Yeah. Before I get to my final question, Henri, is there anything we didn't touch that you'd like to share?
I have to share so many things. So, just looking at my notes.
Yes.
Designing our board, we talked about this. External board member would be for me a must-have for new boards. Making sure external board members come in early would be one thing I would highly advise. Board preparation is interesting. People sometimes prepare for boards, but I've seen board meetings. I don't know. There are people answering emails in the board meeting, pretending to listen, because we're all so smart and can do multitasking. No, we cannot. Sorry. And if you write emails in the boardroom, you're the wrong person. But this happened quite often. But it's been many years ago. So difficult. Then boards that are overcrowded. I had a board where 10 people were in the room for certain decisions. The CEO brought all the management just to feel stronger, and all the board members were there, all the observers were there, so 10 people, and of course nothing happens with 10 people. It's just too many people in the board. Don't do that. So I'm just going through my list here.
Yes. No, that's nice. Kind of a list of no-goes, a list of detriment. Absolutely. Yes. Nice. Nice.
Trust is fragile. I wrote down here for me, but we discussed this already before. Conflict of interest. I think that's it actually.
Cool.
So
good.
From a high level.
So here's my final question to you, Henri. If you could design a dream board, you have a new company, really highly ambitious, and you can really pull from no limits, including even people who are not around anymore. Kind of who would be on your dream board and why?
Okay. So I approach this first in an analytical way. So I look at the company, look at the CEO, look at the founding team, try to understand where their gaps are. And then I try to think who could complete this team, so to say, who could give the best input from a board perspective to the management team. If they're brilliant in sales, there wouldn't be a necessity to bring sales experienced people to the board. If they're brilliant in their industry, you don't need an industry advisor in the board. So I have to figure out who the gaps are. So then, second one is I would bring a person to the board who has some sort of training, be it a coach, be it a psychologist, so somebody who senses the emotions. Can also be somebody who worked in HR for a long time, who has some understanding about the psychology dynamics, because in my experience, these dynamics are more important than the actual content. The content you can figure out once you're on the same level, but reaching same level, you need this psychology game, the ego management, the things we discussed before, Mark. So we'll bring this person to the board. I would not bring a superstar to the board. I would not bring, Sam Altman to the board. Why? Because it's about Sam Altman and not about the CEO. So no superstars in the board. I would try to make sure that the people that join the board have their ego in check. That's sometimes hard to figure out at the beginning, but having the ego somehow under control. I would try to bring people on board who share some things. They don't have to be equal, all of them, but having some cultural similarities, some things that that tie them together already at the beginning. Yeah, I don't know. Might be same experience as an entrepreneur. Might be, I don't know, that they grew up in the same region.
Yeah.
Might be that they are in the same industry or whatever. Yeah. So some things that already help connecting to each other and building trust. Yeah. So and size of the board matters.
Yeah.
Small boards, in my experience, are better.
Yeah.
Maximum 3 to 5 people, from my experience.
Yeah.
Must have is an independent board member.
Yeah.
Who's ideally also the chairman of the board.
Okay. Yeah.
And the partners of the venture capitalists if
Yeah.
they're shareholders in the
Yes.
company, not
Yeah.
the associates.
Yeah. Again, not for intellectual brilliance, but for experience, I assume. Yes. Yes.
Of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's not easy in Germany because many VCs don't have an entrepreneurial background.
Right. Right.
So in
Yes.
other countries it's better.
Yeah.
In Germany that's typically not for all VCs the case.
Yeah. 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 Fantastic. Henry, loads of wisdom, wonderful experiences that you were willing to share. Also some tough ones, some crisis ones. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for this very engaged and insightful discussion. As always, I learned a ton from you, and I'm very certain our audience will as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mark. It was a lot of fun talking to you about this. See you soon.